Hey, welcome to the 58th episode. I think that's right, of the We All Serve podcast. We're back. Took a little mental health break for a couple of weeks over there. It is, Angel, I know your life is ridiculously busy, and I've been juggling some balls of my own, but it's good to be back with you, my friend.
It is. It is definitely the highlight of my week to sit down and do some things and talk about some things that we've been missing out on and catching up before the cast and laugh about stupid things.
It's always fun. It's always fun, and the way I always describe this to anybody that's willing to listen is, it's an informal. We're not buttoned up and too intense, but also very professional conversation. And I heard the greatest of compliments the other day is somebody called this a weekly officer and essentially non-commissioned officer professional development series, and I thought that was really cool. I really liked hearing that.
Yeah, we might not be buttoned up, but I'm sure as heck I'm bundled up.
Well,
It's cold out here.
I have that on you and our guest, which we're going to introduce in a moment. Is I'm out here in Texas, and you're in Chicago, and the general's out in Michigan, and hate to say it, but I'm not jealous.
You know what? You guys got the critters and the creepy crawlies, and we got to wait for them to get frozen out. So I'll take it out here because I can go golfing and stomp out in the woods in the rough and not worried about getting bit by a critter.
That's true. That is true. Although I will say on Friday of this past week, so I had I'll keep the name out of this without his permission, but I was accompanied a senior leader of the Army to visit some of his troops, and we took a UH-60, a Black Hawk, from Fort Bliss into New
Fun.
Mexico. Yeah, and the pilot did us a solid and took us through the mountains, and I saw the beautiful desert and the beautiful mountains, and I was just blown away. It was absolutely just stunning, and made me remember how beautiful our great country really, really is. So
It is. And if you want to hear more about our great country, remember to subscribe, share, review, rate, phone a friend, touch a buddy, and
yeah,
share.
all those good things. Yeah, I mean, we've got some great conversations coming up. Next week, we're talking with our first CASA. We're talking to the civilian aide to the Secretary of the Army, Jim Bland. So he's super awesome.
Wait,
And
Jim?
Jim,
You know that guy was Crane. He was just in Crane's 40 under 40.
I know.
Him, Megan, who was our guest. Who else is in there? There was a bunch of guys that I knew, and I was like, oh, these are all the cool kids.
Yeah, I mean, he's
And he's only in
incredible.
there because he was getting ready to be on the cast. So
Exactly,
that
exactly. That's why.
he's a
So
good guy. Yeah, I like
he's
him.
a good guy, all about service, continued to serve. I mean, he does wear that West Point ring very proudly. He'll probably show it off on the cast, but he's super cool, super down to earth, and can't wait to have that conversation. So it's good, and I will tease this because we do have our first Space Force member hopefully coming on soon. I actually just spoke to him today. And Angela, you and I will talk about this, and excited to get somebody from the Space Force on the cast because we've had all the other
Is it William
branches.
Shatner?
No. Although on that note, actually, I did a sad bit of news. Is I did hear that a fella, I blank on his name, but one of the guys that flew with William Shatner died in a plane crash this past week.
Wow.
I know. He made it to space, and he died in a plane crash. Absolutely terrible. But
That's
um,
crazy.
yeah. Well, I'm excited for our conversation, so I want to jump right into it. Let me get him here on the screen. There we go. We got Brigadier General Scott Hiipakka, who I'll do the very brief bio because I'm scared of Angel hitting me from a couple of states away. But General Hiipakka serves as the Chief Executive Officer of the Michigan Israel Business Accelerator, a nonprofit economic development organization responsible for accelerating Michigan's innovation ecosystem, one Israeli connection at a time. I absolutely love that. We're going to talk about some of his work in that space. Previously served as the director of the Office of Performance and Transformation for the state of Michigan, and worked in the executive office of the governor. We'll talk about some of his work in the Snyder administration, Michigan state government. And prior to his role in state government, he worked in the private sector as the vice president for a consulting firm that specialized in emergency preparedness, safety, and security of clients across the United States. Scott, and we were saying the other Scott, is a member of the Michigan Army National Guard, where he currently serves as the Assistant Adjutant General and holds the rank of Brigadier General. In that capacity, he's responsible for overseeing the operations, mentoring, and building of functional teams ranging in size from 30 to over 8,000 people. He served as the Land Component Commander, Brigade Commander of a military police brigade. So that's definitely a connection.
Isn't that one of
between
yours, Scott? Shalom?
Yes, it is. Absolutely. Absolutely. And we've had that conversation about some of the military police presence, which is certainly big in the Michigan National Guard, and is involved in countless nonprofit organizations has served as an advisor, former appointee, the Michigan Community Service Commission. We're going to talk about some of the board organizations, and I know he himself has been recognized by Cranes in 2020 as a notable veteran, and is the recipient of the 2016 Leadership Oakland Leader of Leaders Award, many others. So with that, absolutely thrilled to introduce Brigadier General Scott Hiipakka. Thank you, sir, for joining us.
I'm happy to be here. Thanks for the opportunity. It's pronounced Hiipakka, by the way, but don't worry about,
and we just talked about that.
Don't worry about mispronouncing it. I kind of get that all the time. So totally used to it. But I'm honored to be able to spend some time with you gentlemen today. So thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Angel, take it away.
I want to jump right back into the conversation we started a minute ago because it was so good. I was like, wait, we got to start the podcast because this is such good stuff. I got to get it. And what we started with, there's in your role, in a leadership role across the state of Michigan, you're called on to do town halls and do kind of these impromptu things where really people would look to shotgun you with questions about that, just hope to take you off your game, and your way of processing and your thought process. I want you to share that again, if you could, because I think it's really valuable, like how you process information, how you understand people.
Yeah. So, what we were talking about before we sort of formally started the discussion today, Angel, it was just about, how we as humans, how we process information. And so as we think about just people's individual passions, and sometimes those passions might conflict, your passions, your beliefs might conflict with someone else's or mine. I think the most important thing that we can do as people and as leaders is just truly respect each other's space and give them a minute to really vocalize their thoughts, and know that in some cases, while it may feel personal, it genuinely isn't. In many ways, it's just them maybe even expressing fear. And so I think as we really think about just some of the things that I've had the opportunity to really work or be a part of, whether we're supporting the food water crisis or, whether it's, different deployments in a military capacity or just the roles I serve in my military or my civilian world. I think as we just recognize each other as for what we truly are, which is humans, and just we want to be good friends and we want to just genuinely support each other. That's the space I come from. And so I think if we can find ways to work together and really just give each other an opportunity to communicate, knowing it's coming from a position of ultimately just of, passion and respect, then I think that's why that ultimately matters. So I don't know if that truly captures what you're wanting me to get after, but I think it does. Important.
It absolutely does. And more to the one that the thread that really resonated with me was the fear aspect, and how our current culture and current climate can be so polarizing, because I can't listen to you, because if you're right, then that means I'm wrong. And if I'm wrong, then I'm wrong about everything. And I don't even know who I am anymore. And that's a very, very scary thing. And I think that drives a lot of the contentious discussions and polarizing climate issues.
Yeah, there's a lot in the world we're all kind of facing today. The news articulates a certain narrative, and ultimately we're all through our cell phones, we have access to instant information and through the internet. So many different tools and resources. But with those tools and with those resources comes the opportunity to really exercise free will, right? And we just have the opportunity to do that here in the U.S. And that's what makes our country great, to make choices and to exercise free will, to make to make the individual decisions about what you want to do or what you don't want to do. And what we often see is people who see or exert a degree of friction against someone else because of their choices. And so I don't necessarily agree with that. I think it's important for us just to recognize who we all are as people. And so I think from a leadership perspective, when we think about at least my role in the the military side, where I'm blessed to be able to serve 8,000 men and women as the land component commander for the Michigan Army National Guard, we really want to respect each other. And the military, from when I first came in to where I am today, I think all of us would agree. I mean, that it's changed. I was commissioned in 1993. And, in my time, I've seen a lot of evolution in the military, and it's good evolution. It really is good. And it's the right kind of evolution to really address the communities where we work and where we live. And so, giving, opportunities for people of all different types of belief systems, different demographics, different orientations, but everyone should get a chance to be able to serve and to do what makes this country great, which is serve together in a meaningful way. And so when we think about, hashtag we all serve, I love that expression. I often will say together we serve, but we do it as a family. And, sometimes that family, we may not necessarily wear the same clothes. We may not have the same looks. Sometimes families get mad at each other. They throw food at each other. But at the end of the day, it's, the family's all you got. And you got to be able to come back to that family and to be able to put aside your individual differences for a moment in time to be able to get after something bigger than yourself. And I think that's a part of what service is. And, that's a heavy topic to start off the show with, but I'll end there, and maybe you guys can ask me something else, or we can talk about something else. How's that?
Yeah, I'm curious about the incubator piece and the entrepreneurship launching capacity of your role. And the reason why I'm so curious about that is because when I was in Israel, all we did was go to different incubators and watch people launch ideas. And I laughed. I said, "How come you guys have so many VC and startups here?" They said, "We're not going to grow. Look at around us. What are we going to grow?
Right.
We don't have a cattle ranch over here."
Yeah. So as the CEO of the Michigan Israel Business Accelerator, we are, our mission is to accelerate Michigan's innovation ecosystem, one Israeli connection at a time. And what does that mean? So we're a nonprofit here in Michigan, and we're only in Michigan. We're responsible for economic development and really building that bilateral economic trade opportunities between Michigan businesses and Israeli companies. So a couple fun facts about Israel. It actually is a little bit less than 10 million people, whereas Michigan is just over 10 million people. But when you think about from just a startup perspective, Israel leads the world in the number of startups per capita. It's and particularly in the Tel Aviv area. Mm-hmm. But just as the largest amount of startups per capita in the world, it's ranked in the top 10 in this rating scale called the Global Innovation Index. But it's such a small country. It actually fits in the lower peninsula of Michigan. So above my head, you'll kind of see that's Michigan with the upper and the lower peninsula there. And so that's so Israel actually will pretty much fit in the lower peninsula. And it's not a very large country, but it is extraordinarily innovative. And the startup ecosystem, its name is called Startup Nation, and its nickname. And so it has that moniker because it has so many startups and just its culture of innovation. A lot of folks ask why does Israel have this culture and this belief in innovation? And a lot of folks have really tried to dissect it. There's books written about this. If you want a really good book, you can read a book called Startup Nation, and that is it's a phenomenal read. I've actually read it 3 times, and it's it's a powerful book that really talks about Israeli innovation and tries to explain why Israel is so powerful from an innovative perspective. I'm not Israeli. I'm not Jewish either. And so I came into the role, actually, I was the former chairman of the board, the former board chair of the organization, Michigan Israel Business Accelerator, asked me to interview for it. And I said, "Hey, Mark, I'm not Jewish. I've never been to Israel." And we kind of joked, and he kind of mentioned they were looking for someone with my background, and I have a background in kind of building teams and interagency planning, big problem solving, building partnerships. And so this was the more I learned about the opportunity, it was fascinated, truly fascinated. And so I'm a person of passion. I saw this as an opportunity to continue to serve. I came out of state government, as Shalom mentioned. I worked in state government for about 3 years. And if you would have said to me I would have landed in state government, I would have said, no way. But I somehow landed in state government as a result of the Flint water crisis, because I was activated in my military capacity to support the interagency framework development and overall program management to support how we were going to work to really address what was the Flint water crisis, which was much bigger than just water and really complex problems. So I landed as the CEO of the Michigan Israel Business Accelerator back in May of 2019. Have been here since. In my first less than a year in the job, this was May of 19, and then my last trip to Israel was February of 20. But I'd been there 4 times in that time, so a little bit less than 8 months, and I'd been there 4 times. Every time I go, I'm fascinated by the people, by the culture.
So cool.
It's a really fun, unique environment, and and just the people are so friendly
and proud.
In so many ways. So it's fun.
It's
Sorry,
incredible.
Shalom, I didn't mean to take up all this time.
No, not at all. Not at all. It's incredible, and hearing your story of how you, I will admit that I thought you must be Jewish because you're the CEO of the Michigan Israel Business Accelerator. But hearing your story, it's exciting for me to watch the look on your face and hear about that story of firsts. And if there's one thing that certainly is a theme of everything that you've done has been certainly service, but also leadership. And I know that you and I were just talking the other week about the conversations that you've been having with the business community, but then also on the Israel side. I know you just had a visit from the Israeli Consul General out to Michigan. I have been following his Facebook posts, and it sounds like it was a whirlwind visit of a number of great conversations. So I do want to dig into that a little bit. But you talked about, you beat me to it. You talked about your first visit to Israel and reading Stardom Nation. I want to talk about another first, and I want to talk about your first of coming into the Army. And you decided to jump into this crazy world of service back in the 90s. And I'm curious, let's talk about the very beginning. Why did you walk into a recruiter's office? Why did you decide to take that oath? Tell us a little bit about what was going on in your house at the time, and your family's support for it. And obviously, I want to walk through your army story and your army journey, which is continuing to this day.
Yeah, so I'm a blessed man. I'll start with as the proud father of 2 great kids, and my wife is just a wonderful, supportive, she's my best friend. And so I think we met in college. Actually, she was my sister floor RA at Michigan State University, and I was commissioned as a lieutenant out of MSU. Go Green, by the way, for any Spartans that are on your.
And they beat Michigan this year. I'm really happy about that. Still pretty happy.
Yeah, a lot of the stars. So
we got to win one game all year. Just that one.
Well, we'll see how the rest of the season plays for my Spartans. But so commissioned out of MSU, went off into the regular Army, 10th Mountain, and then 3rd Ranger Battalion on my active duty time. Was blessed to be able to serve in the Ranger Regiment, and then left active duty after about 4 years because at that point I had done everything I wanted to do. My whole goal going in as a young lieutenant was just to go jump out of planes and get into the Ranger Regiment. That's all I wanted to do as an infantry officer. And so I had done that, and then was done with the military. So I left active service, went and got a regular civilian job. And then 9/11 happened. I took my oath of office to join the National Guard September 13th, 2001. Told my wife I was going to do it for 2 or 3 years. And here I still stand wearing the uniform. I do it because I genuinely love the people. I genuinely love serving and serving others. And that doesn't mean we get it right every day as leaders, right? Sometimes we make mistakes, but my best days are when I'm serving others and when I'm working alongside of the men and women that wear the uniform with me. And so I'm a blessed man to be able to continue to serve now 28 years later of military service, commissioned in May of 1993. So
Incredible.
So that was some time ago, but yes, I'm dating myself.
No, you've seen a lot during that time, and I'd love to learn about your either best friend or greatest mentor. We've all had it in all three of our careers. I'm only early in my military career right now, but I've already been influenced by so many people. Who are the folks that influenced you?
Yeah, so it's interesting. I can't necessarily point to one individual because I've been doing this for some time, right? But leadership to me, what I like to kind of reflect on are more about leadership tools, right? So to me, we as leaders, we build a toolbox or a toolkit of different leadership styles. And you take certain things from some people and you say, that's a great leadership trait. And I want to bring that and I want to put that in my toolkit. Or you might see something that you don't necessarily think is the best leadership approach. And you might say to yourself, okay, I'm going to make a note to not necessarily put that particular style in my toolkit and know that it's there and not necessarily apply that style because it wouldn't work for me. So the best leaders I've worked with are individuals where I've been able to take those various tools and put them in my own toolkit and then leverage those over time, whether it was from my active duty days, serving in the Ranger Regiment, all the way through my National Guard time, where I've worked with a lot of different really quality men and women who all have taught me different lessons. Again, leadership is a contact sport, right? And by that I mean, it's contact. You got to have contact with other people to apply the lessons of leadership and the skills of leadership. And it truly is a blend of an art and a science. And as you sort of matriculate in your career, Scott, what you're going to find is just the different licenses for leadership that you're going to be authorized to use and how you apply those licenses of leadership at different levels of your military career. And as Angel knows, just from his time in the Navy, it's a blessing to be able to apply those. It truly is a gift to be able to be a leader in the Department of Defense, in the United States military, regardless of the branch you serve in. And so I'm blessed to be able to be given that gift every day. And it truly is a blessing to serve.
I love the toolkit analogy because I say that all the time. I'm like, I tell transitioning service members all the time, what kind of tools do you have in your toolbox? Because if you think it's a drop and give me 20, you're going to be not doing so well in the civilian community. And you got to cultivate those tools and find and polish them and try things. And, some things don't work. Some things you kind of say, wow, I can't believe that actually worked. And you're like, cool.
Right. Right. I mean, I in my civilian job, when I was first coming out of the military, I worked in my first real job coming out of the Army. I won't necessarily articulate where it was, but I learned some really valuable lessons about just myself in that environment. And the environment I came from, which was that Special Operations Ranger Regiment community, and then applying that in the civilian sector, that the two were not necessarily congruent. And I needed to be the one that really adapted to that environment and learned just the lessons of leadership in that space don't always apply to the lessons of leadership in the civilian sector. And it's understanding how to leverage the tools to motivate people accordingly in the way that they want to be motivated is really, really important. And that's why, again, we started the conversation today about just this general concept of respect for people and recognizing who they are and what motivates them, and specifically where they're coming from. And that motivation of why they want to do what they want to do is really important. The why and the what are really special.
Would you say that your transition was challenging?
No, I wouldn't call it challenging. I would just call it like everything else, just different. Everyone has a story about when they transition out of the military, or if they're about to transition out, what's driving them to make those decisions. I wouldn't call mine more challenging or not than anyone else's. I would just say that I developed some good stories about what to do and what not to do as a result of some of those things. But for me, it was just my own lessons.
Yeah, I didn't mean challenging compared to anybody else. I mean, just a period of self-reflection.
Yeah, absolutely. There was a lot of just, kind of reflection I did. Some specific, just some days I would be doing some things. It was in a manufacturing facility where I worked, and I wasn't necessarily ready for that kind of environment at the time, just because my maturity level wasn't there, and I wasn't quite sure what to expect. But I learned, and that was the most important thing. That functional element of learning and understanding your environment that you're working in is really important.
Yeah, I'm going through that in consulting right now, pretty hardcore. So what you're saying to me totally resonates, and every day I just gotta go, all right, I gotta take that one on. I gotta take a knee for this one.
And I want to talk about service. And you said something earlier regarding however you frame it, whether you say we all serve or whatever the catchphrase is. But I know the three of us are certainly passionate about service, and something that I know our audience is it's pretty diverse. I know we've got the folks that love to call it a professional development series because they're currently in uniform, or maybe they recently came out and they love to hear it. I always love to see the comments that come in of the who are Rangers lead the way and all that good stuff. It's always nice to see those comments, and that's great. But ultimately, service is something that we're all passionate about, and from your foxhole, sir, you see a lot of different types of service. You see certainly the service members in the Michigan National Guard, and of course the Army as a whole, but also the service of employers and family members and so on. So I'm curious, what message do you have for somebody that's tuning in? How can they be a servant leader? How can they support the service of all of us, maybe without putting that uniform on?
Yeah. So, you think about just the strength of what is the United States, and it's because of, what's made our nation great over the years is our ability to come together in times of real, just when we've been tested, whether it's 9/11, whether it's World War II, whether all these different types of
COVID.
Really, COVID, right? Where people have really come together and we've served together. So let's talk COVID for a minute, right? What our healthcare systems have done across the country, and what we've asked of our healthcare providers, our staff that work in the hospitals.
Yeah.
The support staff that work in the hospital. Let's transition away from the healthcare systems. Let's just talk about our grocery stores, right? And all those workers that work in grocery stores that restock the shelves, that went to work every day. All these different organizations, all these different people that, for many of them, they're just humble. They're like, well, I was just going to work. I was just stocking shelves. And no, you weren't. You were keeping us moving forward. And I think, for the in the defense side specifically, right? You have industry partners that serve. In the government space, you have government workers that serve. Together, it's, again, we come together, and so I call it Together We Serve, and it's this community of service. And community of service is not just those that wear the uniform; it's those that support the community, that allow folks that do serve to be able to do our jobs. I was speaking at a ceremony on Sunday. No, I'm sorry, it was Saturday, and I can't remember my days. I'm an old man. I was speaking at an event on Saturday to a bunch
Happens a lot to me.
Yeah. So I was talking to the family members and the soldiers in the room. It was an Army event specifically, but I was talking about just the importance of family. And not just family necessarily by blood, but family by bond, and what that bond represents. It's a genuine commitment to something greater than themselves, to serving something greater than themselves. And that is what makes us great, which is just this common thread of service to our nation. And you don't always have to love it, right? There's people that don't always love, we saw some really terrifying things, and our nation has really been fractured in so many different ways as a result of some things we've seen. But at the same time, it's allowed us to really be reflective and introspective about what it means to really serve as a collective family, and together we serve as a community, and what it means to just have a bond. And that bond doesn't have to necessarily be that you served in the Navy and I serve in the Army. It just means what if you have kids that serve, or your spouse serves. And my wife, she's the reason I'm able to do what I do, is because she gives me that strength and that power and the ability and the comfort to be able to serve, because I know that if I have to go somewhere, she's got it. Like she can.
Toughest job in the military.
Yes, being a spouse. It's funny you say that. I was talking to, so the commander of the unit that I was speaking with, her husband had been in uniform as an Army officer and had retired, but she was still serving. He was still in. And we were talking about, and I asked him, I said, hey, so what side's harder? The deployment side, or being and staying at home on the spouse side? And he said, unequivocally, being at home.
Yep.
And I have not been the person that's had to be at home, but
it terrifies me.
Yeah, it does scare me too. Like, my wife is just a machine. I don't know how she does it. And she, has raised our kids these years of my, escapades in the military. And I'm blessed that she's been able to do it.
Wow. Well, you've certainly had a strong support structure to enable you to serve on both sides. And I've been laughing about our conversation the other week, where you mentioned that you were at the AUSA conference in DC, but you were there in your civilian capacity. You were there
Right.
primarily, and I know Israel had a large pavilion, a large area over there. Does it get confusing sometimes when you're juggling your two hats?
Yeah, so it is fun because there's such a bleed over, right? I mean, in my military capacity, I'm committed to our state, right? And a part of that is just understanding the defense industry and what that represents to Michigan specifically. We have some unique strengths here in Michigan. Camp Grayling, which is in kind of the northern part of our state, not in the Upper Peninsula, but it's in the northern portion of the Lower Peninsula, as we often call it. In Camp Grayling, we rebranded that here in Michigan to what we call the NADWIC, which is the National All-Domain Warfighting Center. And as a part of that construct, a couple of unique fun facts about here in Michigan, that is the largest training area from a National Guard perspective east of the Mississippi. There is not one other National Guard training center that has the ability to retask satellites. And here in Michigan, through corporate partnerships that we have here, we're able to work with corporate partners to actually get satellite feeds to support our soldiers and airmen that are training here, or the Marines, or anyone else that's coming in to do training in Camp Grayling. So I think, for the one side, it does get really, I can talk military all the time, then put on my civilian hat with the Michigan Israel Business Accelerator, and I'll talk about the defense industry partnerships that we can build for our Israeli partners. And you only need to, really look out your window in like December, January, February, March here in Michigan and say, okay, Israelis, and I'll turn my camera around and I'll show them, you don't get that white stuff there in Israel. So here's why you need to come, and we can do testing of your toys, right? In all
drones, whatever, yeah.
Right, in these all-weather training environments. And so it's fun. I mean, the two do bleed over a little bit to each other, no doubt, but it is, it's fun because I feel passionate about both. And so when you really genuinely care about something, it's easy to talk about both sides. And in Hebrew, my rank is called Tat Aluf. It's kind of like 1 star, and I have 2 staff in Israel, and they help me with the occasional Hebrew words and translations. But because the Israeli military is a different style of recognizing rank. For them, the Israeli rank isn't necessarily as important as it is in the U.S. Department of Defense. That structure. So it's just the Israelis have a slightly different way. They certainly have rank and they recognize it, but they have a different style for how they work together. Leveraging the rank, and so because every Israeli, for the most part, has served in some capacity, whether it's in the military or if they're also allowed to serve in like a nonprofit space as well, if they don't want to necessarily serve in the IDF. But I think for us here, for me, it's a blend and understanding that, there's the Israeli side of my life that I work with to really promote economic partnerships and innovation, and bringing that innovation to the Michigan defense industry is something too I'm passionate about. And I've got the relationships and the contacts and, to be able to do it.
Has it occurred to you that your name, that you and I share a name, that if your Hebrew name might be Shalom? I'm just saying.
Well, I was going to ask you at some point, like, Scott, does that really translate to Shalom? I didn't.
Ask my parents.
Yeah, my staff has never mentioned that to me, but I'll have to ask them, because I'll be on a call with them on Thursday morning. So I'll have to ask them that.
Yeah. And my last thing over here, and I've really enjoyed this conversation, and I look forward to continuing our collaboration, both around again the business Israel piece. I know you and I talked, and we're both Angel and I are from Chicago, and we've got the America Israel Chamber of Commerce, and there's some fantastic organizations that are out there doing this all over the country. So I certainly look forward to our collaboration on this, but also around service. And I know I've said this to you, sir, and I will say it all the time. I'm grateful for any ounce of mentorship, and I know that you're willing to share with folks, and hopefully we'll be able to continue that flow of information. I will conclude just on that from my perspective, and then I'll turn it over to Angel on that note that you just mentioned in terms of the Michigan and Israel, not Michigan, but rather the U.S. and the Israel military piece. I just read an article the other day about somebody that served in both militaries, and I know that there's a handful of folks that are out there. And I've had that conversation with some folks that I know that have served, and they've talked about rank being a little bit different. I mean, even though we're having this conversation, both of us in civies, you're sir to me, and that's just the way it is. And in Israel, it just doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way because chances are your commander is your cousin's neighbor, and it's just, you might start with a sir, and then all of a sudden it's, hey, yalla, what's going on, buddy? And it's just a different piece of it. And I think that we have a lot to learn from each other. I think in Israel, there's incredible training that takes place and expertise in urban warfare. I think that we have the upper hand on the expeditionary warfare. And I think that we have, there's a lot to learn from each other. And I know that the partnership is fantastic. I have a front row seat to it here in El Paso with White Sands Missile Range and some of the Iron Dome collaboration that takes place. And it's I'm jealous of you because of all of the great conversations that you were able to facilitate, and certainly in both of your capacities to lead and to serve. So I thank you for your service. I thank you for your leadership, and I look forward to our continued conversations. And that is all I have. Angel, it is all you.
Well, first I want to tell you, I enjoyed hanging out at Camp Grayling. I went up there with Project Relo, and they were doing their wartime. Actually, I have my Relo coin here. I actually brought my Relo coin with me. Went up there and watched. Basically, it's the graduation exercise that they do up there. They bring everybody in, and they do a whole war game theater scenario thing. It was so impressive. And I just found this conversation so great to get to know more about you, Scott, and find you to be a very dynamic leader. I mean, most days I'm trying to keep my own name straight. You've got 2 serious jobs. And and the way you handle it, and you handle the roles. I mean, they're different roles. I mean, there are, but I mean, you're a professional. At the very core, you're a very professional individual, and you're a great leader, and that's going to transcend whatever role you're into. So I just wanted to thank you and feel really blessed and lucky to have you on the taxpayer's dollar and in uniform, and have you leading our soldiers, sailors, and airmen today. So thank you so much for coming on our cast.
I appreciate the kind words, gentlemen. It's an honor to serve. And, like I said, we do this together. We do it as a family. Together we serve as a community and as friends and as family. And so thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today. I feel like we could have gone on for probably quite some time. It was just a lot of fun to be able to just have a nice chat. So thanks
we'll
for
have
that
to do it again soon.
Yeah,
we will, and I'll post all of the links in our. We're gonna be promoting this show, and I will share the links, of course, to the Michigan Israel Business Accelerator, and as well as, of course, Michigan National Guard. I know that we share a passion for that service. So thank you again, and definitely a reminder to all of our listeners: subscribe, rate, review, share for more conversations all about leadership. Again, next week we've got a conversation with Jim Bland, the CASA, the Civilian Aide to the Secretary of the Army for Northern Illinois. Very much.
He's another guy with a very serious job.
Very serious job.
He runs like a private equity firm or something.
He runs a private equity firm. He is a village trustee. So he's an elected official. Plus, he's got this job. As I always joke with my wife, half of the things that I spend the majority of my time on cost me money, don't make me money, and that's certainly the role that he's appointed to. And it's a very serious job of reporting to the Secretary of the Army, and I just can't wait for that conversation. So it is the highlight of my week, Angel. I agree. Get to hang out with great people. So good times. And again, thank you, General Hiipakka. I got this right this time, and definitely looking forward to speaking with you again